a number of birds. Of course, the hawk or the eagle, which flies very high, the peacock or the western domestic cock, which crows before the sunrise, and the so-called phoenix or firebird, which in the Orient was usually the fabled phoenix of the West in the Orient, became the golden pheasant or Chinese red golden pheasant. And any bird of this nature, sometimes the swan or the hunts or the goose also was used as the solar bird. And on a number of occasions in the East, also the parrot, golden or the green parrot, was similarly used. All these birds were used as symbols of Vishnu or Hari. And the prevalence of the hawk or the eagle as a symbol for Hari can be seen from east to west. In fact, in Egypt, the hieroglyph for Hari was the hawk. And the fact that all the other so-called gods, but the demigods, were expansions of Hari was shown by the use of a small hawk as a determinative associated with the names of the various demigods. So that every demigod would have this glyph attached to their name. Now, if you look at this picture, you see that the symbol of Hari is behind the head of the pharaoh, just as the hawk wings or eagle wings in Egypt and throughout the Middle East were seen underneath the disc, which was also a glyph for Hari. So that when we look at a picture of Vishnu riding on Garuda, actually we're seeing exactly the same thing in an expanded form as the discus of Hari on top of the Vahana of Garuda, or the solar bird, which appears so frequently in the West. This is purportedly the oldest icon of Buddha in Nepal, and he's on his throne, and we can see here above his throne is Garuda, so called by the Tibet. I meant to say Tibet, the oldest Buddha in Tibet. And he is actually called the Garuda in Nepal and Tibet. And I want you also to notice the Nagas, which are also present there on the tops or the backs of the thrones or the heads of the pharaohs, and the other icons or murtis of Vishnu and his incarnation kings throughout the Mediterranean and the Indian subcontinent. This text has a nice description of the holiness of Garuda. Again, he's named Garuda in Nepal and Tibetan iconography. The number of images repeated here in the black and white text is due to the fact that the Garuda in different colors has different meanings. One can see some similarities between this Garuda, this is Chinese, and the Tibetan and Nepalese style Garudas that we just saw. The learned commentator in this text refers to this Chinese deity as the probable way that the Greeks actually envisioned Zeus, but due to their aesthetic sensibilities, were unwilling to portray him. And instead, the eagle became the standard of Zeus, while he was depicted in a very aesthetically pleasing way. Now, this is a more modern but still traditional Vishnu and Lakshmi from Nepal. But I want you to notice that the symbols in Vishnu's hands are not strictly the ones that are associated in India with Vishnu, and instead many of them are symbols associated with Lokeshvara, which is actually Vishnu to the Mahayana Buddhists. As we look at Garuda here, see the interesting features of the Garuda in this, somewhat similar to the Tibetan and the Chinese Garuda. This is another type of Garuda frequently seen in Nepal, and you may notice with this one, as with many other Garudas, the Nagas or the serpents are present there, and sometimes Garuda is eating them and trampling on them, and sometimes they are very docilely coiled about him, which also signifies that he is the conqueror of these serpents, which in this particular case represent evil. The Naga is both a symbol of the deity and a symbol of the anti-Christos, as it were, or the false, the envious. There's also a tradition in which Garuda almost completely loses his bird aspect and starts looking quite a bit like a Western angel. So we'll look at a few of these before we go on to the next main type. Garudas are most frequently found on the back of the throne or somewhere on the throne of the deity as his vahana or carrier or asana that he's seated on, as just the wings, as a symbol with the disc superimposed on them, or in the case of these icons, before the temple of Vishnu, paying obeisances to the deity in the temple. Most of these Garudas were photographed in Nepal. Because the Brahma Surya Sampradaya is alive and well in India, we have a lot of examples of contemporary Vishnu on Garuda images. This one and the next one are from the books of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, and are very accurate with regard to traditional detail. Here, notice the weapons as well as the conch and other usual Vishnu symbols. This variant form has the Lord standing. Hari or Narayan or Vishnu is standing up in this one, which is something that's seen sometimes. And notice that in the background are the Vishnu Dutas, and they appear to be on swan carriers. The swan is another very important, or hamsa or goose, is another very important vahana or symbol, even a form of Vishnu. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Before we continue with the swan or hamsa vahana, we'll finish on the Egyptian hawk as a symbol of Hru or Hari or Ra, Ravi, another name of the sun in Sanskrit. You'll notice here that the hieroglyphic for Ra in this case is a hawk-headed person, and the second one down is the hawk-headed person with the serpent asana under the circular glyph for Hari, and then another variation of that below that, and then the hawk-headed symbol with the Egyptian crown for Hari, and the lower one is holding the Ankh cross. The scepter that's being held in the two top hieroglyphs is the so-called Was scepter, which was obviously the scepter of Vasudev, or the Vasa nome of Egypt, also ruled, the capital of which was Thebes. How linguists will tell you that there is no E in Egyptian, but since they didn't know what the vowel sound was there, they speculate and put an E in there. I feel that it was probably just pronounced Hari because there's so much other evidence in the area for that pronunciation. Pan over. We see here Hawk, the god Horus, God, generic. That's because the symbol for Hari is the also the generic symbol for a deity. The pronunciation Horus is Greek, and the Egyptian doesn't have the OS on the end of it, but the Greeks used the OS because actually for them it was a compound name of Hari and Os, as in Osiris. They used the masculine suffix Os or Us on the end of names. The two, number 10 there, two in the plural, if you pan over, two Horus gods refers to the Soker, User, or Helios, so to speak, Hari and Dionysus, or Krishna and Balaram. And then below that you see Hari again, and then another form of Hari. And then this is very important because Hari Nub, the golden Horus, actually Nub, that symbol below him is the symbol for metal. And so in this case its meaning implies actually that the word Hari actually means golden, because the word Nub doesn't mean golden. And this is very significant when you compare all the other different variations on the name Hari in the various languages, and find that so many of them are translated gold or golden. Then below that we see Neter. Actually in the Egyptian it's NTR, and the earlier form of the Sanskrit Natha is NTR Netra, which is of course capital Netra, or Natha is God, capital G God, and small n is demigod, or the godly. Again, we see the symbol of Hiru is used in the generic sense as the godly, or the Elohima as being the people of God, or the empowered of God, or the elect. And then below that, the symbol of Hiru or Hari as the first of Westerners, or the first to die and rise again. It's very much associated, this form, with Yama or Adam, the first man, and with Christ as the first to return from the dead.
Is that like that 16 or 10?
That's 16. Okay, so then there are two other also forms of Hari there. Sma is very important again. It's the S-M in the Egyptian is you see the symbol directly below Hari there, is the glyph for uniting, or to unite. And it's read, they usually transliterate it Sma, but the actual values of it is S-M. And if we look again at the Sanskrit, we see that the name of the deity, Samkarshana, Sam, S-A-M, in Sanskrit is to unite. And then if we look into the Greek, we see, of course, sin, and Latin, con, com, and all the various forms of that ancient primitive root word to unite. Number 7, we see the glyph for Ravi or Ra, or for Hari, and below that we see the same glyph, number 10 and 11, on the Shesha Vahana or Asana, and above that we see the sign Ku for radiance, or the Ka, the spirit or Brahmajyoti of the deity. Pan over to get the words there. We also see that the glyph Hri is also the kind of generic for day, as well as for the deity. Then go down to 12. Now you see that number 13, Ku, and then go over to the side again. The sun sending forth rays, splendor. Again, the sun rays, and at the bottom the sun disk on the Nagas. Then right there, number 17, very important, is the disk with the wings alone. Now this is the very common way that it occurs in the Middle East. That, of course, is read the same way as the elaborated Vaishnava Murti of Hari on Garuda. It's the very same icon in a reduced form. The name of the sacred boat. It's like the boat of heaven. Before they used the imagery of the solar chariot, the Egyptians didn't have horses, and they used the imagery of the solar boat. And they would pull the Murti of the Lord, or icon of the Lord, up and down the Nile on a great barge, using ropes on either side with the devotees pulling, or on the shore. And we noticed that underneath 62 and 63, there's the boat of the sun, or the boat of heaven, with the two Horus, so-called two Horus gods, situated on the boat. Okay, here we have the Hiru character inside the box, which is this symbol for het, or house. And this is an interesting way to indicate the mother of, this is the Horus, the son of Usur. Not to be confused with the original deity Heru, or Heru Hari the Elder. These two are always confounded. And in this case, we see the symbol for Hari inside the symbol for house. So in this case, it refers to Horus, the son of Isis. And so that the whole character refers to Isis herself. Actually, it's the real meaning of it is that Hari, in this case, is the born of the sunrise, because actually what's transliterated as Isis is really Ushas. Ushas in Sanskrit means dawn, and in this case, actually, the only actual meaning of it was that the sun, so to speak, Hari as the son of the dawn, because the dawn gives birth to the sunrise. An awful lot of the Horus, son of Usur, and Ushas story was very late interpretation given to early icons by Greeks and others who actually had no factual information regarding the earliest traditions. This is Ahura Mazda. Zahner says that the doctrine of Ahura Mazda in Zoroastrianism was taken directly from that of Purusha Sukta, which is in the Rig Veda and is really at the core of Vaishnava doctrines. the problem between Zoroastrianism and the Vedic tradition of asura being having a negative connotation in certain of the Vedic and post so-called Vedic literatures, and the Zoroastrian tradition considering Ahura or Asura the supreme deity. The crux of this problem is that the suras or sura senois worship Krishna or Sura or Hari. Sura is a dialectical form of Hari, and the Asuras were opposed to them. Now the root of the word Ahura or Asura, as in Asura Mazda, is actually Ush or Vas or As, as in Vasu, the nome in South Egypt, as in the suffix Ush or Osha or Os in Greek, and the name of the deity Os or Ushur in Egypt, and probably the Babylonian name of Marduk, Asaru, and so forth, that it means actually spirit or to be or being. And this being Ahura Mazda, we see again that he is holding a chakra. This icon has it stylized as a ring, and he is appearing on the Vahana of the Garuda Vahana, and the Nagas are interestingly stylized just kind of like a curls coming off the bottom of the solar disk. Now this is an Assyrian form, and like the Zoroastrian form, it's kind of intermediary between the Vaishnava type and the Egyptian reduced type, in that it has the wings and the disk, but it also has a representation of the deity within the disk itself. This is another Assyrian version. The thing that has to be said about the Assyrians is that they had the same ancient religious tradition, but their mode of worship was left-hand tantric, and their understanding was quite perverse, and that's why they were considered the enemies of Hari by the theists and the right-hand tantrists. They represented the more atheistic or Mayavadi type conception, and the left-hand tantric type of practices that usually flowed from that impersonalist type of conception. Notice here in the text that it says the deity was Ashur or Ahura, who was the chief god and the war god of the Assyrians, and that he replaced the god Marduk, which I just mentioned was the chief deity of Babylon under the name of Asaru, when the Assyrians dominated Mesopotamia. Well, again, we see that they're all on the same field. This is the same deity, but being worshipped in a very perverted manner. These Jewish grave seals are labeled Yah, and they're again depicting this deity as the God of gods. Notice the six-pointed star here in the moon, and this is like the Helios quadriga form with the solar chariot, the Angwaped with the Naga feet, and the discus here, this is quite late, has been actually reduced to a shield. Go to the next one. There's a bird head on this one. Again, here's a solar cock's head, and again the shield. The shield actually, the discus as a shield has another meaning too. The shield meaning Messiah. Naga feet again, and the whip of Helios quadriga. Go to the next one. Here we have the eagle, more of the eagle type again, with omnibus in the background, and the naga wrapped around the legs. The other three seals that were in this series will appear in the section under Narahari. This type, this is a late version, AD, has the attributes separated. We see there's the eagle, of the God of gods, and the sun god showing with his the discus and the radiance. And we know that this is saying he is the God of gods because he has a standard there which has the symbols of the different planets on it. There are, being in the ancient times, that they thought there were 7 planets, and that the God of gods was Saptamahabhagavata, the great God of the number 7, so that he was the God of gods, because he was the ruler over all of the planets. And actually, many of the ancient peoples thought that the sun was the father of all the planets in the solar system. So here we have the various features separated out. Again, we see the attributes of the solar deity associated with Asur in this murti. The eagles are down at the base with Tyche, and the solar face is on the chest, so that this is much like the Athena or the Zervan in Rome, and in late Mediterranean murtis where the solar symbol, the lion's head or the face or the cock's head or whatever, was on the chest instead of on the head itself. This is a very late icon in the living Vaishnava tradition, and you see Lakshmi Narayana situated on their Vahana, and this one is a strange combination of the Hansa or goose or swan type and the Garuda type. And again, notice that Vishnu's chakra in this is a mere ring, like the Ahura Mazda form. The Hansa or goose or swan is one manifestation of the Lord, of Hari, as can be seen in this contemporary but traditional icon from the books of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. And it's important to notice Brahma standing down below Hansa, paying his obeisances. It's, of course, the so-called solar sampradaya of Vaishnavism that the Western scholars like to talk about when they call Vishnu or Krishna a solar deity. That's the Brahma Surya Sampradaya. And here's Brahma paying his obeisances. In the West, of course, the Hansa or the goose or swan is a very important symbol, as is the hawk or eagle of Narayana or of Zeus, Ammon, or Jupiter. And there were flocks of these birds kept at the ghats, or the big bathing tanks, at Zeus or Jupiter Ammon's temples in Egypt and other places throughout the Mediterranean. Again, this is the domestic cock as a solar symbol of Eli, or Yah, the deity of the Hebrews and the Jews. And now we'll look at the domestic cock as a variant solar symbol bird for Vishnu. Now this is a very late Lakshmi Narayana on Garuda, but notice here that the Garuda is a kind of a compound critter. The body is more like a parrot, but clearly there's the cock's crown and the wattles. Of course, the peacock is also a preeminent solar symbol, but I'm going to cover the peacock in some depth in the section on the circular glyph for Hari. And I want you to notice with this chimera, which is a compound Krishna or Vishnu, depicted as a compound of the animals representing all the lesser deities and demigods. And you'll notice the naga tail and the bull hump, the peacock head, but curiously on the peacock head again, we see the domestic cock's wattles. And I want you to notice that the worshiper here, instead of being Brahma, is Surya, the second person in the Brahma Surya Sampradaya. The significance of the peacock as a symbol of Vishnu or Hari can be seen in the fact that the peacock feather or the peacock was the symbol of the city of Heliopolis, which was the capital of Hari worship in Egypt. Notice here in this very early Greek painting that the person is wearing a crown which has feathers which appear to be from the white and blue variety of peacock. See the eyes and the ends of the feathers? And it's also known that the peacock was imported by Solomon and was the symbol of the house of David and sacred to Eli, the deity of the Jews and the Hebrews. In this other early Greek painting, we see the chimera, which is obviously like this sphinx, a symbol of the deity, Hari, and he's a compound. He has a lion's body in this case, and he has a kind of a compound bird's head with what looks almost like the horns of later horns of Amun on them. But notice the eyed feather on the crest of the bird's head. This particular murti is on the top of a temple in Taiwan, and it's a lovely example of the cock or pheasant as a phoenix type of a sunbird. Now we will take a look at traditional images of Yashas or Asclepius or Agnitas, Khonshu, Serapis. This is another traditional Greek Asclepius. This is another Asclepius. In this picture of Asclepius, he's accompanied by his daughters and his sons, I believe. And one of his daughters' names, incidentally, is Aisha, or Yasha. But it's really important to look at all of the traditional images of Asclepius and then consider that his by name was Yashas in the Greek, and as Serapis, one of his by names was Ishus. Of course, it's the same name as Yashas or Yasho in the Sanskrit, and Jesus or Joshua in the Hebrew, Yeshua, and so forth. This Asclepius, the Roman name of the Greek Asclepius, whose province was healing patients, came to sleep at his shrines and were cured by healing dreams. Of course, this tradition of incubation was carried into Christianity, and also the tradition is there in Vaishnavism. A person is thought to be healed by sleeping in the temple of Vishnu or in the asila of Vishnu. Also notice the Naga symbol, which was in the Greek and the Egyptian and the Jewish and Hebrew healing cultus. Of course, the deity Asclepius was thought to be the son of Heli or Helios, to have been miraculously born of a virgin, to have raised Lycurgus from the dead, and to have been struck dead by Zeus, and because of his an argument between Zeus and Hades. Hades complained that Asclepius was going to rob him of all the dead, all of those confined to hell, and in fact what happened was that Asclepius went to hell. According to some traditions, it's the old harrowing of hell story, and was raised again by his father Helios or Heli. And of course this tradition is very early, predating Christianity by centuries, 5 centuries at least. And my interpretation of these similarities is that Asclepius was not considered to have been a historic personage, but was a kind of a mythic figure. And in that respect, I believe that the tradition was actually prophetic, and that it was part of the whole complex of Western Vaishnavism, so that when Jesus appeared, many of the prophecies that he fulfilled were the prophecies of this particular branch of Western Vaishnavism, of the healing cultus associated with Serapis or Asclepius, Yashas, and that in fact he did fulfill so many of the prophetic type of requirements that he was recognized throughout the Mediterranean as the incarnation or the coming of Yashas, the savior of the deity Yah, as the great physician. So that we see here the Romans also worshipped him under the name of Asclepius. But his cultus, or the cult of Serapis, which was simply one of his Egyptian names, was the most important devotional cultus in the Mediterranean at the time of Christ. The sacred bull of Memphis in Egypt connected with the gods Ptah and Osiris, who later became the Greco-Egyptian deity Serapis, a god of the underworld. Serapis appears on Roman imperial coins, and the famous Library of Alexandria was attached to his temple there. Of course, the Apis bull and so forth is associated with the worship of Api or Hapi, the Egyptian Narayana or Yah, form of Vishnu, and this is included here to show the connection that way. Serapis, of course, is the Egyptian name of Asclepius. Here is the very famous Egyptian form of Serapis, and it's important to notice that on his head, the container, which after the Egyptian fashion is a symbol, like a determinative that either says his name and or symbolizes his particular relationship to the deity or his deity. The symbol itself, which is a container, is decorated with an olive sprig, which has olive berries on it. The meaning of the symbolism of the container on Serapis' head is that he is Helios. This is actually a compound name of Heli, or God the Father, Eli, and God the Son, Usur, or Osha, being, and so forth. It's like saying, in some respects, Apollo and Dionysus, or Krishna and Balaram. The pun on Helios is Elias. Elias is that it means olive or olive oil, and it also means mercy. Another variation of the word means to be free, as in being a free man, or being someone who has been saved or redeemed or freed. So there's great significance to the olive and olive oil as a symbol of this deity. And of course the chrism, or charisma itself, and the pun on that, charisma, which is linguistically related to the name Krishna, means the all-attractive one, or the beloved of all. And it's a pun again, charisma and chrisma, which is the olive oil of anointing in initiation. That chrisma is also a pun on the name Krishna, and is usually associated by linguists with the name Christos itself. Again, on this beautiful Serapis, Notice the sprig of olive on the pot, on top of the head, and the very beautiful kind of traditional face of Christ. Also, notice that this murti has pupils. Significance of the pupils in the West is, I assume, the same as that in the East, in that when an icon, a sacred image, was first produced, until it was actually installed for religious purposes by the priest, and the presence of the deity invoked in it, the pupils were not painted or carved, and only at the time of the installation were the actual pupils carved, which signified the presence of the Spirit of God within the icon. Of course, this practice spread from the original icon makers to every different type of idol, that was so-called idol or worship image that was made by whomsoever in the Western world. The significance of this is the relationship of some of the Mahayana Buddhist orders to the healing cultists. There was a particularly prominent group of northern Buddhists that were surgeons and knew a great deal about herbal medicine. And here you see what's described here as a medicine Buddha, and he's holding again a container. Now here we see Dhanvantari, an incarnation of Vishnu, who is the legendary deliverer of the medical art, the scripture, the Ayurveda, and he is holding a container filled with somaras, or the nectar of immortality. And this nectar of immortality, of course, is the subject of the battle between the demigods and the demons, who are trying to achieve this immortality. It's said that by the mention of his name alone, all of the diseases of the living entities can be healed. And also want you to notice, pan up here, this traditional crown. Of course, this is a contemporary murti of Dhanvantari, done by a disciple of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. But we see some elements of the crown here that are very important in Vaishnava tradition. One is the Usur-type crown shape of it, with the decorations off to the side, which are very stylized, but in the very earliest forms, and on the Usur crown of Cyrus and in Egypt, clearly Nagas. And then at the very top of the crown there's a Garuda-type figure. Either the Garuda or the discus or a lotus are most common at the very top of these Usur-type crowns. Also, the somaras is associated in many of the stories of the Vaishnava tradition with the moon itself. And we see that Dionysus and Yashas and so forth, oftentimes scholars say that Balaram is associated a lot with lunar symbolism, just as Krishna or Hari is associated with solar symbolism. These are some medical instruments from the temple of Asclepius. This is also at the temple of Asclepius. You could see in the distance the theater, and in the foreground the very large excavation on the lower right-hand side, which appears to be a ghat. This is the rotunda at the Temple of Asclepius. This is some detail of the decoration at the Temple of Asclepius. And notice the typical Vaishnava symbols here, the sunflower, lotus type open blossom, the lion's head. Of course, lion is a pun for Hari or Ari or Ili, the deity, and the scallop type design or palm frond type of design, which is a symbol of Ananta Shesha, and the vine, which is a symbol of soma or of the wine, depending on which type of leaf is carved. And also, and then there's the swastika design is also there. This is the theater, and we find these theaters near all of the big temples, major temples of the Asila Federation. Of course, the great library at Alexandria and the entire city of Alexandria grew up around the worship of this deity, of Iashus, or Serapis, and Tacitus and others record some of the various legends around the beginning of the worship of Serapis in Egypt, which is associated with worship of the Zeus Infernalis or Jupiter, Zeus Velchenos or Jupiter Infernalis at Argos and at Pontus. Pontus on the seacoast is the traditional origin of the Murti or the icon of Serapis, and it's very important that to note that in that particular legend recorded by Tacitus in his histories, the story involves the appearance of a very beautiful youth to the king in Egypt, who instructed the king to bring this particular icon to Egypt, and told him that the city founded on the worship of this deity would become the greatest learning center in the world. And of course Alexandria did for quite a long time. And the Temple of Serapis was the focal point of all that learning. And we can see here, as at other of the great Asila Federation temples, this magnificent theater, as well as there were many stadiums, theaters, and libraries, hospitals, places of healing, and places of learning, always associated with these temples of the Asila Federation, which were part of the group of temples that worshipped Iashus or Serapis. Now the archaic, the primitive Koros. Most art historians agree that the very first Greek stone sculpture in the round was this Koros, and the accompanying chore, which would be the same as the Roman Jupiter Juvenalis and Juno Juvante, or the Radha and Krishna form, original form of the deity. And this particular stone sculpture was kind of the exclusive province of the Egyptian religious and Mesopotamian religious for a long time. There was a very advanced wood sculpture amongst the Greeks, but there were proscriptions amongst the Greeks and the other believers the Jews and others against carving anthropomorphic so-called images of the deity. Earliest worship was, of course, aniconic, and then icons were only produced by the great teachers or priests, priest artists or religious of Egypt, and it was like with many of the art guilds, it was very taboo for anyone else to produce these images. A lot of left-hand tantrist groups were producing images and worshiping them with very obscene rites, and so that was part of the difficulty. When the Greeks did start making stone carvings, they evolved very rapidly because they had a wonderful tradition in wood carving, just as the Indian people did, so that their work in stone carving within one generation went from very primitive to really very magnificent. Most art historians speculate that these were grave offerings of some kind, but in fact they were the temple murtis, and they were probably dressed and worshipped in pairs at most of the temples that were part of the Asala Federation, where they recognized the youthful form as the original form of the deity, so that Kora or Kore was Hare or Radha. You see, the youthful form of Helios, as so-called Koros, would have been Krishna, and then that is quite well established by the discovery of the hymn to Koros, where it describes Koros dancing in front of the boys, and other information that we have about the youthful form of Helios on the island of Rhodes, where he tended his sacred white cattle and sported with his older brother and his consort Rodha, which was whose by names include Hare or Hera, and Kore, which is a variation on Hare, Minsta or Basile, and so forth, which are all related to the different forms of Radha in the East. This is a nice Koros which shows the progression from the primitive toward the very beautiful naturalistic form that the Greeks ultimately attained. Another one of the giveaways for the Koros and Kore images regarding their being temple murtis for worship is seen in the rigid frontal, formal frontal position of the form. Also, the one leg is forward a certain amount always in these forms, and there's been some speculation about significance of that in regard to the formal worship murtis in India, having to do with the business about right hand and left hand of God and so on and so forth. But anyway, the prevalence of these Koros images in the Mediterranean, when they have been excavating in recent decades, they found so many of these images that it appears that at one particular point in time the worship of this form, youthful form of the masculine and feminine aspects of the deity was just pretty much very popular. And of course, these were the first, art historians will say that these images were really the very first, the beginning of Greek stone sculpture. Eventually the koros was also produced in various metals. Of course, koros was the ideal of a beautiful youth, usually between 15 and 17 or 18 years of age, always with long hair. Of course, we know that Krishna is always depicted with long hair as Keshava or Kishora. Not shown in this close-up is the right hand. I haven't yet figured out what the object is that he is holding in his hand, but many of the koros icons have a small object in the right hand. So we see that ultimately the very flat, stiff, early attempts at sculpture in the round by the Greeks, which art historians say were patterned after the Egyptian, eventually developed into a really full sculpture in the round that ended up being quite anatomically correct. And the religious significance, of course, of the koros as regards the mysteries involving Kore and Demeter is that the youthful form of the deity as the lover is the savior of the beloved, the maiden. We can see here that the youth is related to the Eleusinian cult of the mysteries of Kore and Demeter, and this eternal theme is reflected in, for instance, the Ramayana, where Ravana kidnaps Mother Sita, and Rama has to go and save her. It's also seen in the Orphic mysteries, and stories about Heracles harrowing hell and so forth. In the Vaishnava tradition, at the prayer of Mother Kadasi, the mother of devotion, in some legends, Vishnu descends into hell to save the souls there. And in the Buddhist tradition, of course, at the request of Mother Tara, Lokeshvar descends into hell and saves the souls there. So we see in Christian tradition, of course, that in some ways related to Sabbatine privilege and the exceptional mercy of Mary, Christ, and also with in the general idea of the death and resurrection of Christ, that he descends into hell and saves the souls in hell. And the thing about Sabbatine privilege and the exceptional mercy of Mary is also related to the worship of or the veneration of Tulasi and her exceptional mercy in that by throwing oneself on the mercy of Tulasi or Mother Mary only can one be forgiven of the sin of reminicide or killing of the priest or the type of Christ, the representative of Krishna or Christ. And it's very important to note that in the mysteries and in the Sabbatine privilege of the veneration of Mary, many scholars associate the Sabbatine privilege and other elements of the veneration of Mary with the worship of Juno. And of course, one of Juno's by name is Satyreya, and that's also a name of Mintha or basil, sacred basil, or the Tulasi plant, which is associated with the exceptional mercy of God and the salvation of people who have committed verminicide. This is from a Roman villa, but we see here the graceful threefold bending form type of the cowherd boy with his flute, and this was probably a representation of Jupiter juvenalis. Actually, the names juvenalis and juvinta of Jupiter and Juno are related to the Sanskrit yuvana and yuvani, names of Krishna and Radha as youth. Actually, those are the roots, Sanskrit roots, beginnings or origins of the English word youth. Just as the koros form of the Greeks, koros helios, was considered and it was esoteric and considered to be the topmost form of the deity, original form of the deity. In Egypt, the cult of the youthful form of Heru or Horus or Heli the Elder was very esoteric. There's almost nothing known about this cultus, and the images of Heru as a youth or child are always seen with the hand in front of the lips in a symbol or gesture of silence, which is associated by Herodotus and other ancient historians as the instruction to not speak of the mysteries outside of the order of the initiates. Just as that form of koros is associated with the youthful form of Heri or Horus, we also see that in the Near East, in the Middle East, the youthful form is associated with Adonis, Attis, the Adonaiah of the Hebrews, and Tammuz or Teshep, so forth. In this particular picture, we see the threefold bending form of the young Adonis in the shepherd or pastoral form. Of course, this is the earliest form of Apollo, and very early pictures of Jesus are also seen in the figure of the good shepherd or the cowherd boy, and follow the same type, often with the threefold bending form here, and the lamb frequently over the shoulders. This is important in respect to the tradition about Siddhartha Gautama Buddha, or Pata, and his activity as the good shepherd, and his lamentation over the sins of the world and the sinners, like so many sheep, wending their way to slaughter, and his musing in one famous legend that he would like to give himself on behalf of for all of these who were going to the slaughter in ignorance. And it's related to the prophecy of the Messiah or Buddha of infinite compassion, who was to appear some 500 years later, which of course was the time of Jesus. Now, in regard to the name Adonis, actually we see three forms of this name in Sanskrit, which are compounds of the word Adi, meaning supreme or first, and different Sanskrit words for Lord. For instance, the Attis form would be Adisha, the Adonis form would be Adinesh, which is Nesha, or Nesh, is like Natha, a word meaning Lord, and again Adinaya, as in the Hebrew, Adinaya means again Supreme Lord. Naya is like Natha or Netra or Nesh, another word for Lord in Sanskrit. This is one view of the very famous Helios of Rhodes, another Koros, and As with all the later Apollo or Helios forms, he is the ideal of young masculine beauty, and this one's damaged, of course. But the art historians that have studied the Buddhist and Hindu iconography in relationship to this business about the vegetal or solar deity, or so-called fertility cult deity of the sun, they all state that the ideal of beauty, which found its way into both the Buddhist expressions and the Indian subcontinental expressions, all stemmed from the school of sacred art related to this cult of Helios or Apollo in the Western world. Now, of course, there was a highly developed wooden sculpture in the East at the time of the beginnings of Greek stone sculpture, and I think that probably a lot of what happened was that the stone sculpture was picked up very easily and very quickly from the Greeks, just as the Greeks picked it up very quickly from the Egyptians because of having a very elegant tradition in wood sculpture already. But start to notice here the actual features, the similarities and features between this Rhodian Koros, Helios, and some of the other Koros that we'll look at. This is a frontal view of the same Helios of Rhodes, and another thing to note about this is that the hero Heracles, which is associated with the fellow with the club and the 10 feet and so forth, is not the original deity Heracles, which was worshipped by the Egyptians and the Phoenicians and so forth. I mentioned that Herodotus was very interested in finding out about the origin of the deity Heracles. Also, the deity Dionysus is not the same as the left-hand tantric master that legend says traveled around the world about 500 BC, spreading his abominations. So that when we look at this Heracles, we see that he's the deity Heracles is associated again with the cult of Helios Koros. One of the ways we know this is because Heracles' consort is Hebe, and in the West, in the Roman tradition, again, the youthful form of Juno is considered to be the consort of this deity Heracles. Now, in the Greek world, Jane Harrison says that the Heracles figure is the sacred king in relationship to the solar deity of Helios and the youthful form of Koros, so that we find Heracles as the Basileo is Vasudev, and the Koros is the Krishna form, and the Helios is the Narayan or Vishnu form, which is seated within the heart of the sun. So this is very interesting that Jane Harrison has been able to make this connection, which of course has a direct analogy in Brahmasurya school of Vaishnavism. The fact that the original name Heracles is in fact Hare Krishna can be seen from the the ancient writers, Greek writers that visited India, who said that the city of Klesoburo was the capital of Krishna worship. The Mathura and Klesoburo that are spoken of by Aryan and some other ancient Greek writers, those two cities have been definitely identified by modern scholars as the cities of Mathura and Krishnapur. So the Greek KLS of the word Heracles is the KLS of Klesoburo. In other words, at that particular time, those particular Greeks said the name of Krishna as Kliso. And the first part of the name, of course, is not Heracles, but Hari. And of course, this is again the name of the deity in Egypt and the name of the deity in the kingdom of Hari or Matani and so many other places. There's variant forms of the deity's name, for instance, the Eli in Hebrew and the Ali in Aramaic and so forth. So here we see the Kuros form of Hali. We also see the type of Heracles, and we can readily understand that the great importance of the Maha Mantra or Hare Krishna mantra in the East probably was paralleled throughout the entire Asila Federation of temples in the West at one time by initiates who would sing the name of the hero form of their deity, either as the youth or the sacred king, or the celestial form as this Hari or Heru, Klis or Kleso or Koros, or the name Krisma, all the various different forms of this particular holy name, which in the East appears as Krishna. It was probably chanted much the same in the West in very ancient times as it is in the East today. Now here's a beautiful contemporary murti of Krishna, or Hari, again from the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, which is part of the living Brahma Surya Sampradaya. And you'll notice the very classic, beautiful features of Krishna here. And because this is a living tradition, and this particular school is very, very orthodox, we can take a moment to study some of the other symbols in this picture. Can you pan around a little bit with the camera here? I want to pick up the other features here. Well, notice first off that Krishna has the peacock feather. The peacock feather is, of course, the peacock is the symbol of the city of Heliopolis. It's also the symbol of Argive Zeus. It's the symbol of that same deity at Pontus. And Sinope means with eyes. And, of course, the peacock was a symbol of the deity in Argos. And, again, the eyes are very much associated with the story about the peacock there. And the peacock, as well as being a symbol of the city of Heliopolis in Egypt, is the symbol of the house of David as well. Now, you notice that Krishna his body is blue, and of course Zeus and Jupiter and Ammon were all blue. And the sacred kings, the pretenders, so-called Vasudevs, like the story of Vasudev Pandraka in the Srimad Bhagavatam, these phony incarnation kings all called themselves the Basilayo. I have proofs that I will show later from coins that the a Latin name Basileo for the sacred king, and the Basudeo for in the Greek, Wasadeo in the Egyptian, and so forth, that these are all forms of the name Vasudev, which of course is Krishna's title in Dvorka, where he appears as the sacred king. Now, this Basileo in the West, the prophesied incarnation king or Messiah, that was his title. And it was also the title given to Heracles. Heracles was considered in Greek mythology the first Vasudeva. And of course, in the New Testament, the title of Christ as the sacred king is always Basileo. And in all different Greek sources, both historical and mythological, the sacred king or the Messiah king or incarnation king is always called the Basileo or Basudeo. Anyway, he was always blue too, and matter of fact, there are traces of blue polychrome that have been found on Serapis myrtis. When we were looking at these Egyptian icons of Yashas or Jesus earlier, they were also painted blue. And many early Christian icons were painted blue, and the reason the art historians give for that is that, Jupiter and Zeus and Ammon were the great gods of gods. They were the sky gods, and being sky gods, they were symbolically blue. Blue stood for the atmosphere. It stood for the cosmos, and being a cosmic deity, it was appropriate. Sometimes also it's said that blue is the color of spiritual purity, and that's why early Christian icons are painted blue. The false basileos and in procession, triumphant procession in Greece and Rome and so forth, the kings, warrior kings, they would paint their bodies blue or dye their bodies with berry juice or something blue or red or purple, and they would have their bodies tattooed with the various symbols of Vishnu, and they would grow their hair long and shave their faces and wear gold. Of course, gold was golden clothes were reserved for the royalty, and they would in so many ways try to identify with themselves with the original Vasudeva or Heracles, and in this way pass themselves off as incarnations. This became so prevalent at one point that there was a law passed in Greece against the impersonation of Zeus. Which I mentioned earlier. Now, also notice here that Krishna is holding the flute. If you could pan down a little bit. Krishna is holding the flute. Of course, that is also associated with his being the shepherd or the cowherd, as we saw just a moment ago in the Roman villa scene. We see the cow there, sacred white cow. Of course, Helios Koros tended his sacred white cows on the island of Rhodes. And there's the sacred peacock again. Peacocks always appear in the earliest icons of Christ, and they also appear on the earliest Christian graves in the catacombs. This contemporary traditional again shows Krishna with the peacock feather, the crown, the golden dhoti, the blue body, which in the left-hand tantric traditions in the West were the maenads. In the background there's a swan. Often there are swans in the picture. Of course, the swans are the symbols of the Hamsa or Ammon or Zeus or Jupiter in that particular form. And the heavenly, the paradisical environment, the word paradise is related to the Sanskrit word paradesha. And, of course, para is the name of Vishnu, but it's also a pun because it means far or beyond and so forth. And so with desha, it means kind of like the far land or the land beyond. It also means the land of para or of God. Now, this early bodhisattva from Afghanistan shows the Krishna Koros influence, and it's interesting to note that some scholars have said that the bodhisattva type was patterned after an Indian prince. And they just simply didn't know that the Indian prince was Krishna. This is the type which we also see in Nepal and Tibet, and which carried up through the Orient and down into Japan as the Shokanan, or the original form or dharmakaya of the deity, whose other expansions include all the Lokeshvar forms. This nice late bodhisattva again has a threefold bending form, as did the previous one, and exhibits so many of the features of the Krishna Kros, Helios Kros form. This is a very beautiful Chinese Kuan Yin. Again, the Shokanan in Japan, or the original form of the deity who is manifest as Lokeshvar. You see the circular type of decoration on the headdress, where there isn't an actual peacock feather. There's almost invariably on all of these bodhisattvas a headdress that has a number of eye-like or peacock-like stylized circular decorations on it. In this modern icon, notice that Krishna is standing on lotus leaves. He's usually standing on the lotus blossom itself, as you may have noticed in some of the previous icons, or the later Buddhist icons. The form of the Lord is invariably standing on some type of a lotus. And as we go up the form here, you notice he's always wearing the golden dhoti, and it's nicely decorated with garlands and jewels. In this case, has his flute in hand, peacock feather, and he's wearing the tilak, of course, here. This is a very prominent threefold bending form, which we also see on many of the Buddhist icons. Now, keeping in mind the previous icon with the threefold bending form, of course, which symbolizes the grace and the beauty of the Lord, notice here that Chintamani Lokeshvar. Now, this is the supreme original form of the deity worshipped by the theistic Buddhists in Nepal and Tibet, and then through China as Kuan Yin, in Korea as Kwanan, and then in Japan as Kanan. This form of the deity here is standing on the lotus, and in the threefold bending form, and you notice the mandorla type of effulgence behind him. This is very important with regard to Western iconography, and his rather to our Western eyes feminine look. No Nepalese or Tibetan would confuse him for Tara, however, his feminine expansion. This is Lokeshvar, and the masculine deity, and he's here called Chintamani Lokeshvar. Notice that he clearly has a peacock feather in the front of his headdress, and he has the solar disk behind his head and so forth, or the Hari, the effulgence. And he's called here Chintamani Lokeshvar. This is very important because, of course, in the Brahma Surya Sampradaya, one of the most important credos is in the prayers of Brahma, which begin, which glorify Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And one verse begins Chintamani with the word Chintamani. This is a name of Krishna's abode. It's the land of transcendental gems. And actually that Krishna is the jewel, the transcendental wish-fulfilling jewel, which is seated in the heart of the lotus of the supreme abode. And so he is actually, Krishna himself is the Chintamani, mani being jewel. He is the wish-fulfilling gem. He fulfills the desires of all living entities. And this is called Chintamani Lokeshvar. And again, he is related to the Dharmakaya, or original form of the deity in Mahayana Buddhism. And he is depicted here with, when I asked various persons in Nepal what this tree was, that I saw in a number of his murtis, they would say, oh, that is a kalpavriksha tree. Well, of course, Krishna's supreme abode, Vrindavan, or Chintamani Dham, is also the place where the kalpavriksha tree grows, or the desire tree. And in the New Testament, we see in the book of Revelation and also other places in Jewish tradition that the abode of the Lord has these wish-fulfilling trees or desire trees there, which yield 12 different kinds of fruit. Of course, in the Nepalese and Tibetan traditions, Lokeshvar has unlimited forms, but his two-armed original form also has many different names and many different attributes associated with him. Here he is Bhadranath Lokeshvar, and he's in this tantric, almost so-called Shiva-like dancing pose. But this is again Lokeshvar. The problem about the cultural differences is very prominent. The difference between our Western aesthetic and this particular Tibetan type of iconography. If we notice here, to many, they would think that this is actually feminine form, and in fact, I had the interesting experience of being in Portland and seeing an icon of Lokeshvar on a restaurant named I think it was the Food Goddess or something like that. And I told the people that were involved with it that this was not Tara, and it was not a goddess at all, but this was Lokeshvar, the supreme masculine deity of the Mahayana Buddhist tradition. And they thought I didn't know what I was talking about, and they were initiates of one of the prominent lamas in the Western world. And when he came to their place in Portland to give a series of talks on Tibetan iconography, he also corrected them as to this fact. He told them, this is not Tara, this is Lokeshvar. This is not a goddess at all. And so we could see that even amongst those that are supposed to be initiated or instructed, it's very easy for people to make mistakes when they're looking at the picture without the caption. They don't have the authoritative purport on an image in a temple or in a text. It's very easy for people to become confused and concoct all kinds of nonsensical and misleading things by speculation. Now, I'm not quite sure what the meaning is of the difference between the base here on this Arya Vakiteshar Lokeshvar and the base on the one that you'll see next. But the difference in the base sometimes, or the difference in the color, as with the Garudas we saw earlier, accounts for the name and the doctrines that are associated with a particular form of the deity. Even if the form of the deity itself doesn't change, the color or the circumstances of the deity will make a big difference. Now notice the comparatively simple base, lotus base, under this form of Lokeshvar. And this is a very popular form of Lokeshvar called Padmapani. That is, the painting on this is not nice, but the worship of Padmapani is very pervasive throughout Nepal and Tibet. Of course, in Tibet, actually, the Nepalese use the Sanskrit names for the deity, and in Tibet, actually, Chintamani Lokeshvar is called Chinrezi. So here are a couple of nice examples, modern versions of traditional pictures of Krishna. And we see the peacocks and the dhoti and the swans and the paradisical environment, lotuses, the flowing water is very important, the peacock and the crown on Krishna and his blue body and the flute and the garland of flowers, his threefold bending form. And see also down there to the right, lower right on Krishna's left there, we see probably a tulsi plant. Often in an icon of Krishna you will see a tulsi plant. An important thing to note, as I discussed earlier in this thesis, is that all of these elements of the Lord's form and his environment say things. It's part of the doctrine that Krishna is non-different from his body, and his body says his name, his form and his name are non-different. He and his name and his body are non-different. So that when we see his blue skin, that says Nila, Nila meaning blue, which is actually the same as the word Nihilus or Nyla, where it means blue. We see and it says who he is Narayana, and we see that sometimes he appears as blackish, and in which case his form is saying Krishna, which in the Sanskrit also the Krishna rather than Krista or with the other end means blackish, and his golden dhoti, gold in Sanskrit is Hari, and the gold ornaments on him say Hari, and the peacock also is called Hari. It's also called Nila for blue, and the swan itself is a Hansa. That is the name of Krishna. The lotus, of course, is a symbol of Narayana, so that the lotus says Narayana. The water there says Narayana. He is the Son of Man, and he is the God of the waters, so the water says Narayana, and it's of course always flowing water, streams and fresh water, and that's very important because we know that the Narayana cultus, the Helios group and all the Asila temples and the Asila temples and of course the Jewish tradition of Eli all practiced mikdash or ritual bathing, and the waters were considered to flow from the waters of absolution were considered to flow from the actual form or body of the Lord in heaven. And in Egypt, of course, they were to flow from the foot of Narayan or Purusha, just as the Jordan, which means descender, like Ganga, descended from the foot of Narayan in heaven, the Jordan was supposed to descend from the land of Narayan, or the land of Hari, which was just north of the Holy Land there. So we also see that frequently there are, I don't see any doves in this picture. We'll go to the next one then. There's a deer in that picture, though. Oh yes, a parrot. So if you look in the Sanskrit dictionary, you'll see that the green or yellow parrot is also called Hari. And then when you look to the down on the other side there, you'll see some deer. You'll also find that in the Sanskrit dictionary that a deer is called Hari, as is a lion. Usually any animal which was a gold animal or a fruit, like an olive, which was a gold fruit. There are the doves there. I thought we'd find some if we looked in here. We might note in the Western tradition that a pair of doves symbolizes the individual soul and the Holy Spirit. In the Eastern tradition, there is a similar tradition. The Holy Spirit is symbolized as a bird along with the Jiva soul, the Paramatma or Supreme Soul, and the Jiva soul are like a pair of birds situated on the tree of the body. And the doves all over the world are known for their inseparable nature. They pair for life, and when one dies, the other frequently dies immediately afterwards, just out of separation. Now, this symbolism of the soul as a dove actually can be seen in Ramayana, where many versions of the legend state that Valmiki was watching a pair of doves in a tree when when a hawk came through, burst through the foliage from above and snatched away one of the doves. And he, at that time, was inspired with the meter which he used to write the Ramayana, which of course is the great scripture dealing with Ravana's kidnap of Sita. And then in the distance there also you can see Helios Krost's herd of sacred white cows. These sacred white cows are called Sarabi, and this is linguistically related to the name Serapis. And of course, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, of cows I am the Sarabi, and so forth. I like this one a lot because the artist has managed to include many symbols which are very important in this one picture. Of course, here we have the asila of Krishna or Vishnu, the paradise, a place of peace, so that you see, for instance, there's a big cat in the background there living peacefully with the other creatures. And the lotuses, the symbols of Narayana, and the fresh running water, the two doves, the swan or Hamsa, the Krishna, of course, has Hari, the golden dhoti, and there should be some tulsi growing in there somewhere. I don't see it right off. But we see the white cow and the white sheep, which is the lamb. Helios, Kuros had 365 white cows and 365 sheep. And the sheep were for, the Western scholars say, the 365 sheep were for the nights of the solar year, and the 365 cows were for the days of the solar year. And we might also notice the white doves, white sheep, white swan, white cow. White-colored animals were very sacred to Helios or Apollo. And there's a reddish cow back there too. It's on another one of the islands or asila of Helios in the Mediterranean. There was a herd of red cows. The red cows were also sacred to Helios. And an important thing to note about that is that the whole beginning of the Odyssey, the beginning of the problems of Odysseus and the Odyssey were due to the fact that he and his men stopped off at one of the island asilas of Apollo or Helios, and his men killed and ate Apollo's sacred cattle, and that began all of their woes. Now, you'll notice as we look up in the picture there that there are all the fruit trees, of course, and there's the apes. Now, the apes are very important from the standpoint of the West, iconography in the West, Egyptian iconography. You'll always find the baboons or apes paying obeisances to the sun. In Sanskrit, they're called the Harivamsa because it's a curiosity of apes that in the morning when the sun starts to rise, they'll stop their activities and turn towards the sun and actually put their hands up as if in an attitude of prayer. And the peacock is there again. A peacock is Nila or Hari, and there may also be a parrot in there. I can't see that well, but again the blue form of Krishna and the golden dhoti and the effulgence and the crown and the peacock feather on his head. And also I can't see whether any of these are detailed enough to have any of the marks on his body like the Srivatsa on his chest. He has a number of 32 and 64 and so forth by different traditions, auspicious marks on his body, which are symbols of his various avatars or incarnations. And Lokeshvar also has these symbols. And of course the Egyptian Vasudeo or Sacred King and the Greco-Roman Basileo also had these marks. This is just another example of these same symbols occurring, which one will see, of course, in pictures of Krishna, no matter how ancient they are. And in the more orthodox contemporary pictures, we see that there's a deer there. Deer, of course, says Hari. The swan says Hamsa. The lotus is the symbol of Narayan. And the solar discus or effulgence behind his head. And the gold dhoti, which says Hari. The white cow, which says Serapis or Sarabi. The dove, white dove, which is the symbol of the Paramatma or the Holy Spirit. And Krishna's darkish or bluish body, which is, of course, associated with Jupiter, Zeus, Amun, or Osiris. Usur or Osiris was always depicted as black, blue, or dark green. And, of course, Nihilus was depicted as blue. Charaka is the explanation for the association of Vishnu Yashas or Hariyashas as the great physician, as prophesized in the West. This association with Balaram and the use of the Naga as the principal symbol of the healing cultus in both the West and the East. Charaka, a wanderer, wandering religious student, a spy, a kind of ascetic, a kind of medicinal plant, name of a muni and physician, the serpent king Shesha, who was the recipient of the Ayurveda. Once on visiting the earth and finding it full of sickness, he became moved with pity and determined to become incarnate as the son of a muni for alleviating disease. He was called Charaka because he had visited the earth as a kind of spy or chara. He then composed a new book on medicine based on older works of Agnivesha and other pupils of Maitreya. Well, of course, the importance of this is that Ananta Sheshanaga, which is a form of Balaram, that it says here that Shesha or Balaram visited the earth at a hidden incarnation as a spy, somewhat, and he, because of his great compassion, he decided to incarnate for the alleviating of disease. And of course, the fact that the physician, the great physician, the healers of the East and the West, always, in the healing cults, always are symbolized by the Naga, is here shown to be due to the fact that this was believed to be associated with the incarnation of a Sheshanaga or Balaram. There we have, in this also, one of the other important connections of Yashas with Balaram and with being the first person or expansion of the original form of the deity. In other words, Balaram as the son or the expansion of Hari or incarnation of Hari, which Yashas is the son of Ili in the Western tradition. This is another example of the Koros, or as a type of the early Christ as the Good Shepherd. This is a very important illustration from one of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami's books. Again, this gives the Brahma Surya Sampradaya doctrine on Samkarshan or Balaram as the origin of Vishnu and so many different manifestations of the deity. We see in the center at the top Samkarshana or Balaram with his plow. Of course, this is the most important, one of the three most important iconographic features of SKR or Shkra Baal in the Western world, known to the Greeks as Dionysus. He had white skin, always wore a white plume, and the plow was one of his main symbols. The plow, incidentally, is a pun on the name Krishna. So that the name Samkarshana is a pun. It means both with a plow and it means with Krishna. And of course, Balaram is always found with Krishna as his immediate expansion. Krishna is, of course, to the left of Balaram, as Balaram is always seated, so to speak, at the right hand of God the Father, and Krishna is the origin of Balaram. And below Balaram, we see there Vishnu and Garuda. These are so many different expansions and incarnations of Krishna, or which are coming through Balaram. So this is a very important thing. Now we're going to look at Shesha, manifestations of the Shesha form of Balaram, which is associated with Vishnu as Sapta Maha Bhagavata, or the God of Gods, the Great Lord of the number 7. This is associated with the ancient concept of the 7 planets, and each planet having its regent, and of course the God of Gods being the controller of all of the planets. Here we see the apotheosis of Ramesses, the deceased pharaoh in his spiritual body is sitting and having his name inscribed on the fruits of the tree of life, and he is wearing a small version of the usur or Purusha crown, and the deity directly before him is a Sethek, who is, if you notice the seven-leafed palm above his head, actually a form of Skr or Shukrabala. And this is very important, the hand or fan palm leaf as a symbol of the deity. Various kinds of palm leaves were actually ultimately used, just as the scallop shell is, and other leaves that have a form reminiscent of the hoods of Sheshanaga. And especially if they had 7 lobes, they were considered, they made nice symbols for Sheshanaga. So we know that one of the important symbols of Balaram is also the palm frond. And the Messiah was waved or welcomed with palm fronds in the ancient Near East. The name Sapta Mahabhagavatar, Great Lord of Number 7, is a title of Vishnu as God of Gods. And it's very important in relationship to Ananta Sheshanaga, who, of course, has unlimited heads supporting all of the celestial bodies on his various the hoods of his head. And the various planets are symbolized by jewels on the crown of Sheshanaga. And Sheshanaga most frequently has 7 hoods for the 7 planets. Of course, we see so-called Thoth next to, or the ibis head next to Sephex. And I believe that's Amun on the other side. The tree of life behind there actually may be an acacia. It usually was an acacia tree, which was the principal symbol of Usur, and the Deja or Jagannath Murti form of Purusha was always made out of the acacia tree, which was supposedly the great log in which the body of Purusha or Usur floated up on the shore of Byblos in. Again, as relates to the Naga symbol as a principal symbol of the healing cultus in all of Asia and the Pacific Isles, one can see practically anywhere in the East, along the roadsides and at various shrines, thousands and thousands of these votive offerings and thanks offerings, small pieces of stone or anything that can be carved or inscribed upon the Naga coiled on a staff, just as the Naga in the Old Testament when Moses set up the serpent of the Lord in the wilderness for the healing of the people who were stricken. These are again given by people in thanks who have prayed for healing from any kind of a disorder, and of course again especially snake bite, just as in some of the legends about the Old Testament affliction of the people. So these offerings are seen everywhere from the Orient down to Sri Lanka and out into the Pacific Isles. In this nice reproduction, notice that above on the canopy over the head of the sacred king, the line of Nagas with the planets on their heads. This is, of course, the Vasudeva. Notice the Naga on his own headdress. Of course, one usually would find either the Garuda or the Naga as the seat or vehicle of the solar disk, Hari. Again, here is the Vasudeo, or the king, the deity, incarnation god in the Vasa or Vasu nome of Egypt. And notice here that he is on the lion throne, the throne of Hari. Ari is a pun for lion, and in the name of God, golden. And right above the lion there's a little line of Nagas with the sun on their head, or planets on their head. Okay, pan down. I want to get the feet of the throne. They're probably, Can you see the back feet there? All right, right in the middle. Yeah, there's the line of Nagas there. Very important. He's showing that he is the god of all the planets. Now, right there, watch. Go back a little tiny bit. Now, you see those symbols there underneath the throne. On the one side, on the right-hand side, as you're facing the picture, those are lotuses. This is the symbol of Narayana, and that's an Egyptian stylized lotus right there. So this is again where you see in the Orient that the Lord is always seated on a throne that has lotuses on it, or an asana that has lotuses on it, and that means that he is Abhideva, or Hapi, or Hop, or Nihilus Narayana, and that is his throne. Now, on the other side, those are the papyrus reed symbols from the other part of the Nile, which is the symbol of Narayan in that part of the Nile. And the legs on the throne usually have, you see they're animal legs, and they usually have lion's feet on them also, which symbolizes the throne as the throne of Hari. Now go up, now looking at the Vasudeva, he's holding the Ankh cross. Go down a tiny bit to catch his hand there. Other hand, okay, he's holding the Ankh cross. The Ankh is actually, it's philologically related to the word anchor and the word agoniste. Agoniste means the Christos, or the anointed of God, the hero or Messiah of God. And it also is related to the Sanskrit Ankh and Ak and Anga, as in Unguaped, all with the meaning of, as in angle, meaning what is bent, curved, or crooked. That's also the meaning of the anchor and so forth. Agoniste, of course, means twisted, or in agony, which means to be twisted. And the word Anguaped, or Naga, is also from the same root, ng, meaning to be twisted or curved or bent. And so there are many, many puns off of this symbol in both the East and the West. Again, with the Anguapeds or Recteds, the people of the Yadu dynasty, the Spartans and the worshippers of Yah or Narayana, being called the Anguapeds, or the Asuras, those that have the Naga feet. It's a pun. It actually means Anga, as in ankle. The word ankle is also derivative from this root. Then we also see the whip or flail of Yama there, and the crook of the good shepherd, and the club, which is another symbol of Vishnu, or scepter, that particular scepter. He's not holding the vast scepter in this picture, actually. On his head there, you will see the Naga. And in this case, there isn't a solar circle, but he's kind of making one with his own body there. And go up above him there. Cut over. I'm wondering if we could catch the... Oh, that's good. All right, now we've got... go look at the other side. See if there's a female on the other side, too. There's not one in that picture. Down onto the other side, we don't see one. Okay. Well, usually he's accompanied by the two feminine projections. One of which is Ushas, which is dawn, and the other which is night. Ananta Sheshanaga is always associated with the deity as Yah, the Babylonian Yah, and the Yah of the Old Testament. This byname of Yah, of course, is Narayana, and Hapi or Abhidev of the Egyptians. And notice here that behind the solar disk, again, in this tantric, so-called tantric Buddhist version. Now, this is Makindranath Lokeshvar, and Makindranath is actually Matsya. Now, we see that the Naga heads, there's 7 of them again, and there's jewels on the head, which stand for the planets, and then there's the solar disk, and we see Lokeshvar in this case this is a contemporary Matsya Lokeshvar, but it's based on a traditional form. and there's a peacock feather pretty clearly on this one. And then there's the Vishnu symbols, a chakra and a hand and the conch and some other Vishnu symbols, including a flute in this particular case. Then go down, and we see, interestingly enough, very traditional Vaishnava form of Matsya. This is actually an icon of Matsya. Here we see the dolphin. In this case, they don't actually know what a dolphin is, but they've repeated some of the dolphin characteristics. Notice especially the mouth, the lip on this fish, although it has scales. And see how he is lifting up this person that's just below him there, and then go over to the Brahma that's there worshiping. Now again, the association with the Brahma and the Surya Sampradaya. There's a Brahma there and probably Surya behind him. The icon of Dagansa Hari or Yah that has been associated with the Canaanites is also that of a four-armed man emerging out of the body of a fish. And this is again associated with Narayana and Nereus of the Greeks. The whole idea of the merman, in fact, the Nereids or the mermaids and mermen were considered to be descendant from this particular form of the Lord Nereus, who was half man and half fish. Of course, this was a late Greek misunderstanding of the early icons of Dagansa Hari, or Yah, showing his form emerging out of the fish, which is a way of saying that the Matsya incarnation or form was a manifestation of Vishnu.